Hi, I'm Martin. I'm the software team leader of Ventsim and one of the main developers of the software currently.
I'm Florian, I'm the director for Ventsim Australia.
My name is Leo, so I used to be the general manager of Ventsim. I'm now the director of global mining sales for Chart.
And I'm Craig Stewart. I guess I'm the original developer of Ventsim, but I now do independent consulting since a few years ago.
All right, so who's got a question or a comment on Ventsim 6, Ventsim's future, or something you want to see in the software in the future?
Hi guys. So I guess there's a lot. I see a lot of features and it's very nice. But I guess working with the software and Florian, you mentioned a bit about it, and yesterday Negar mentioned a bit about our software. Is some of the big. I mean, a lot of issue that we see with the software is not the software itself, but sometimes the users don't have the knowledge or the capabilities to work with it, right? Because they don't understand what's going on in the background, and they don't understand the physics behind it. So I guess in terms of better educating the people and what the physics are behind the software and how to use the software in a better manner, are there any like specific efforts that you believe you'll put in there, like whatever it could be, right? YouTube videos or whatever it is there that you're planning on maybe incorporating within the software, that it'd be very easy for users to, whenever they had the fixed flow, well, they understand what's the physics behind, or when they change a certain resistance, and how to measure that, right? Because I mean, you mentioned too about auto calibrating your model, but then that's in accordance to having good measurements, right? So it's very hard there. I've seen some measurements. Well, if you don't go the whole way to the back, right, you won't have a good measurement, to calibrate your model anyway. So I just want to put it out there and see if there's any ideas or efforts that would be put into that.
Sure, thanks, Igor. And firstly, we have a training course tomorrow, by the way. So if you want to join us for any Ventsim training, I recommend it. YouTube videos have been on the card for years. We'll get there at some point. That's a very good point. We do want to get more of this information out there, for sure.
No, look, it's a great comment, Hugo. And I guess with Ventsim, and particularly when I first started Ventsim, it's always been a balance between ease of use and I guess potential accuracy. I know there's a lot of detail that needs to go into making an accurate model, but for new users and for people who are just introduced into ventilation, there's a lot of things that I suppose, I guess personally, I wanted to get them involved and excited about ventilation without weighing them down with too much detail, and that detail and learning and experience would come later. So that balance has always been a great discussion. I know there's people here that would love all sorts of warnings and errors to come up if you did one little thing wrong, and there's other people that would just like to hit the button and have a simulation come out straight away without anything. Maybe the solution's somewhere in between, but I think education's a big part of it. I think self-awareness of what you do and don't know is also a big part of it. And I know personally it's always been a challenge for me to find that balance. But just in response to Florian, there are quite a few webinars on the website. I've done a few myself for Ventsim. There are other people who have done independent Ventsim videos on YouTube. So if you just YouTube Ventsim, you'll see quite a few there as well. But yeah, there can always be more.
And another comment as well is, Craig is right, there's webinars on our website. For general question, we also have a forum that we have for that. Switching my hat to a member of the Mine Ventilation Society of Australia now, we also have a forum for people to ask questions there, as well as a library of documents that people can access. So there's information there as well.
Yeah, discussion that happens often in the development team is, should we put in a warning for this? And that's, from contact with the users, I think that really informs us, like how often people are asking this question, or how often they run into this certain problem, and yeah, it's always it's not always an easy question to answer, because it can, we don't want to clog things up too much. We had a spurt there of doing quite a few webinars. There's a few years ago, and I think there's a good selection there, but we could definitely do more. Yeah.
They were all done for COVID, which was in 2020, so it needs to be updated now, for sure. Okay, next question.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'll give a bit of a compliment and an insult at the same time. I think when a lot of us started working in VNet PC as a historic software that we used for network solving, and I thought one of the things that Ventsim picked up is it had a great manual, right? Whatever you ran into, you could hit F1, bang, manual's there, search it, learn what's behind the software, get smart, right? And move on with confidence that you got it right. So my question is, when is the manual getting updated, and out of the new features, how many of them are going to be kind of in the new manual that we see when we hit F1?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Yeah, so the manual is probably, it's in a fairly constant state of catching up. We have done some updates for there's a Ventsim Design 6 manual now, but there are certainly still gaps in it. There's a lot of the very recent stuff we haven't got in there yet, but it's something we need to, like I said, trying to catch up on that. But as against that, look, I think if there is, I don't know if this is an adequate response, but if there is something that you go looking for there and it's not there, we encourage you to contact us, and we will answer any question you have. And the other resource is the forum. So we have written things on the forum about new features, so that's a good place to search. And that's for some things that kind of serves as a bit of a substitute. But there's definitely we take your point on having that manual up to date.
I'm pretty impressed, Darryl, that you've actually read the manual. That's something that people don't do much these days, I guess. And I remember when I first wrote the manual, it was over 300 pages. I used to print it out for the training courses, and the thing was like a brick. It had a lot of information, but I got the impression not many people read manuals anymore. Hands up here who reads the Ventsim manual. Anyone? There's a few. That's great. I'm really impressed, Martin. There you go. So that's some great feedback, and I think that certainly deserves, I guess, extra effort, I suppose. But as you know, writing manuals is a challenge. You've got to be concise, but you've also got to be descriptive. And I can see the manual easily blowing up to maybe 1,000 pages now with all these new features. I'm not sure where the limit is in terms of that, but as Martin said, there's always backups on the website, extra webinars, forums, and that sort of stuff that fill in that gap. And hopefully between the two sources of information, that can cover most bases. But no, it's great feedback that people do read the manual. My time wasn't wasted after all.
I have to say I'm very surprised as well. We are aware we're in a state of catching up constantly with our manual. We are working on it. I think for Ventsim 6, we've actually done quite a good effort there to try to get as many things as we can into the manual. Keeping in mind, the development for Ventsim can be very fast. These are some of the features that Martin presented today. We only talked about 7 days ago. We talked, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And today it was already in there. So in some cases, it's a bit hard to go as fast as the programmers work. So we're aware and we're working on it. Who's next?
Just want to start off by saying thank you for putting those kind of ease of switching between stages. We got a couple models that have over 10 stages, close to 20 stages. So being able to switch between two, especially adjacent ones, is going to work a lot faster now. I guess in general, on the topic of staging, it's might be a silly question, but automatically when you go to a new stage, it automatically unlocks. And so any changes would be applied across all of the shared airways. Is there any particular reason why it can't automatically be locked when switching between stages, so that if you do make any changes, it's localized as opposed to multi-stage kind of applied?
Martin, you're the man, mate. But look, I've had this comment myself and many other people. I've made the same error myself. You charge to a new stage, you start making changes, and you say, "Damn, I should have locked it." And then you've realised you've got to go through and either load up a backup or start again. There is a bit of a resource delay in locking stages, because it's actually got to save a copy to the hard drive, and you do slow down a bit. But I think personally, Martin, that would be a good option, perhaps.
Just a quick one. Who's here made an error with stages in the past with our model? Yep.
I think it would be pretty straightforward to make a setting which would relock the stage on changing it. It'd be easy.
That's what we want to hear.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's never occurred to me though. So I haven't, I haven't heard that one. But I think we can do it.
Next week, yeah. By the way, just a quick comment, but we obviously discuss new features here and all these kind of things, but programming takes time. So it's not because we talk about it today, it's going to be there tomorrow. So just be patient with us, please. That's crazy. All right, who's got another comment or questions or features they want to see in Ventsim? Any griefs that you're having? John?
So I'm really excited to make better use of Ventlog. So shame on me for not yet. But is there any integration considered for automatically taking data from instruments and entering it into Ventlog, say via Bluetooth?
No, we have not talked about this, but that sounds very interesting. Is there any instrument that you're thinking about specifically that has Bluetooth connection?
Yes.
Which one?
I'd probably start with Kestrels, because it's a pretty common instrument used in South America, especially for everything. But you get a lot of thermodynamic or psychrometric data out of it.
On the Kestrel, do you use a Kestrel for vent survey?
Not for airflows, but for temperatures and humidity, yes.
Okay, good to hear. No, we haven't talked about getting Bluetooth linked with Kestrel, but I guess that's something that's possible. Do you have a contact at Kestrel, or someone has a contact at Kestrel that we can discuss?
No, sorry.
All right. We'll look into it. No, it's a good idea. I like it. Especially with a new event log coming up, hopefully soon. Definitely a good point. And definitely try event log. All right. Who's the next question or comment features that you'd like to see? We got two. Ian. Oh.
Yeah, I think the concept there of using the unified database that's accessible to all of the users is there. And then when you start thinking about the stage application, will the stages then be applicable to a particular user? So they would then open up and apply it to the database for themselves? Or is it going to be a simple set of stages, or is there going to be more than 32 stages available?
Yeah, I don't think we'd thought about it in terms of having like stages assigned to users or anything. It was more that we'd have a register of changes at a minimum, so like a version control, and then also you could look up changes that have been made and indeed who made them. So I suppose part of that register would be what stages were changed, and so.
What I'm thinking of here is, so you've got a long-range planning team that's working with the model to do long-range projection. What their staging is going to be different than, say, what your short range or your technician is working with in the field. and how they use the model will be different, but then everybody's using the same database.
Yep.
Look, I mean, the database object model has been around for a long time. I used to work in Mount Isa Mines 30 years ago, and we started to introduce that. It's a fantastic system where you can assemble a model out of a bunch of database objects, and the concept of stages may actually become irrelevant if you have that sort of database. You could actually switch your stages from the database objects rather than having it into the model, and I think that would be probably an easier way to manage it. It certainly is an ambitious target if you want to try to do this. I think having multiple users access the same model without stepping on each other's toes and changing things that people don't know about, having an approval process to submit those changes as well is obviously an extra layer of, I guess, red tape and control. But that said, I think for large companies it is a great target, and I think something that would be appreciated. But don't underestimate the challenge of doing it. So, yeah.
Wasn't saying it was going to be easy, guys.
Neither was I. No, we're very well aware it's going to be challenging. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither will the database version. The idea of multiple people accessing it at the same time is probably going to be one of the latest things to come in. It's probably more going to be about version control, going back to versions. And one of the things I forgot to mention as well on the database is once you have a model on database, you can actually use other software to access the database. And I'm especially thinking about tools like Power BI or Tableau, where you could actually have your own reports automatically made up for your models using those tools. Next, I think there was another comment at the back.
This is a refrigeration question. I guess there's always a balance between mine ventilation design and an air cooling required, and it can be heating also, but I'll talk about air cooling. That then feeds into the refrigeration design, and that's different. Is there an appetite to include some refrigeration design into Ventsim? So for example, the behavior of direct contact or indirect contact heat exchangers, you give it a factor of merit. What does the temperature of the water need to be in to achieve that cooling? And then that could get out of hand. You could go back to the refrigeration machine itself. But Howden has that type of information, and this is the reason for the question. And then that could feed into heat rejection also. And you could look at the heat rejection circuit. So, Pump Sim, I'm sure, was born from this type of thing. And that's getting integrated. Is there an appetite, or do you think there should be a strict division between refrigeration design and what Ventsim's trying to do, or do you think it can be integrated?
I guess I'll start. Especially when we integrate Ventsim and PumpSim, I would like to see both of those two things integrated. Now, whether we're a long way or not, that's another question. Another part of it is, and Martin, you're going to correct me, but I'm pretty sure we have the possibility of simulating heaters as indirect or direct, as well as with the cooling, looking at factor of merits, water temperatures, and these kind of things. You want to confirm, Martin?
Yep, you can set up a factor of a coefficient of performance and other parameters around a cooler. So I presented coolers in the session before lunch, and there were other things there that I didn't talk about. So you can get information on the chilled water that you require. So it's not too deep. It doesn't go much further than that. Like you said, we could go further. I suppose it's a question around what we want to do with Ventsim and what we want to include there. Like there's always a decision about what like comes down to modeling a fan or a cooler. There's a boundary where you go, this is the information we need, and you input that information, and then sometimes you might think, well, maybe we want to bring more information in, such as coefficient of performance or something. So there was always a line there that's being negotiated, and probably one that we've pushed it out a little bit with the coolers. We've got a few inputs there associated with cooler performance, and yeah, it's something to think about. We could potentially do more.
There is a basic calculator in Ventsim for factor of merit and cooling tower performance, but it really is simplified. I've seen the calculations and spreadsheets used by Howden on working out the correct factors. I've seen BBE as well. I have a lot of analysis in this. Again, it's one of those features that I don't think most people would have the qualifications or knowledge to actually use correctly, and I'm not sure whether putting that feature in Ventsim is going to be of benefit, or should they be talking to the OEMs and consultants that specialise this in the first place. And my feeling is that they probably should, obviously go to the source and get the right information. It's probably a bit too complicated when you talk about fouling factors and cycling and different temperatures for most people to get some good results out of that sort of thing. But that's just my opinion. Yep.
It is a collaborative process, right? Everything that is in Ventsim. So if enough people are asking for it, it'll get prioritized.
You're right. That's very much the bottom line. So if the consensus is that we should look at those things in more detail, we'll get there eventually for sure. All right, who's got another feature or comment or question?
Yeah, I've got a few questions here. Just real quick, the texturing on the airways, are we going to be able to import our own textures, or is it just presets?
This stage, no, you can't import your own. If you want other ones, then definitely contact us. We've got access to quite a lot, so we picked out ones that we thought would be good, and I think we've still got access to the large database. So if there's something there that you want, or definitely let us know, and we could probably find something the same or very similar.
Okay. Yeah. What springs to mind for me is, it's basically I don't know if the right term would be another dimension of visual data, but you could hatch essentially if you need to show, right, because you're limited to your primary layer. Maybe you're coloring it this way, labeling it this way. Maybe you need that third piece of information to differentiate airways. So, this is my hatched one because it is this friction factor or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't think of that.
Anyway,
I mean, yeah, you could. Yeah, I suppose that's something else, isn't it? Like using, because we envisaged it to make it look more realistic, as much as a pink airway will look realistic.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, no, so we're sort of working behind your back here a bit, Martin, because I was actually talking to your programmer directly about this, but surprise. But no, the idea is actually, exactly as I said, is to differentiate airways with different friction factors, with higher, lower, maybe different textures to differentiate different types of walls as well, concrete shafts or whatever the case may be. So it's very much another layer of information that you can check visually and see straight away that there's a big part of your decline that you haven't textured in the same texture as other parts of the decline, and that's a twig straight away to make sure you check the friction factors. So it's, I think as a visual data collection tool or data checking tool, it's actually going to be quite valuable, and I think that's what most people will end up using it for. Yeah, I also asked you guy whether we can load custom textures, and he said, yeah, we can do it, but for this first release, maybe not. But I think that might be an option many people might take up as well. But he said at the moment the textures need to be a certain picture type or shading to be effective, and that's why he's left it out. So.
And you said you had another one as well?
Yeah, I guess maybe just more of a comment on VentLog. So maybe this is more for the group, but we adopted it mostly because we didn't have a database in place. So we're using it as our database, and it's useful because, you can hook it up to Power BI, right? So there's your weekly event report, there's your monthly event report, all that good stuff. We're not using it from the tablet to collect. So we're basically using the VentLog database aspect, and then we just do a automatic import of our export or our CSV download from our data collector. So there are a lot of applications without even looking at it from just the app standpoint. Just throwing that out there for everyone.
For sure, and if you got more questions about VentLog, feel free to ask them how they feel about it. One question for you as well. You mentioned not using the tablet, but using it as a database for Power BI. Do you also use it to compare with your Ventsim model?
Yeah, so we only started recently, right? But yeah, that was one of the attractions to doing that instead of just building a database, which would have been a little simpler, right? Because then you could control the structure 100% yourself. But because it ties into Ventsim, it's pretty handy, right? Define your station in Ventsim, and then, hey, here's your history of data.
How did you find the setup of Ventlog? Was it fairly straightforward, or any issues?
So I didn't set it up. One of our co-op students who had some experience with it at New Afton did, and he was working with you guys on it. And yeah, it was more of the issues were just on the back end, right? And we did a big IT infrastructure change at our company and stuff, so it was more related to that. And now it's been pretty easy, right? You can, as long as you're comfortable doing a little bit of database administration, to throw a few helper tables in and all that to make the reporting easier.
Okay, thank you.
Are you exploring the inclusion of artificial intelligence for maybe simple tasks like filtering in the beginning, and maybe complex tasks like to evaluations of MindFire? I don't know, maybe you have a projection in how much time of years maybe we have this tool of artificial intelligence integrated to the Ventsim?
I'll start with a broad comment. I'm not a big fan of the term AI, I have to say. I find it can be, you can put a lot of things in AI, I guess, when you talk about it. So I guess, can we make the software smarter? Do we want to make the software smarter to identify more things? Yes, definitely something we want to do. I've talked with a few people about the fact there's lots of data in the industry nowadays that are accessible, and we can do lots of things with it. So if there's any data you want to, think about the things you want to do with it, feel free to let us know. We can have a look at ideas about it. I'm personally quite aware and very interested in the large amount of data available nowadays in mine ventilation. About 5 years ago, there wasn't communication installed on the ground. There wasn't many live sensors. Nowadays, it's becoming a lot more mainstream. So a lot of research, I think, can be done now that couldn't in the past. And same with LiDAR scan, looking at the roughness of the wall, for example, or looking at the tracking vehicles as well. So you got so much more information available now that we can use. So it's more about, the data is there, we have it, but what would you like us to do with it? What are the key issues that you would like us to look at with data? Don't know if there's any other comment from the panel.
Yeah. So I think we're a little bit more relevant to the Ventsim control side, because you're getting real-time data and you can start predicting what's going to be happening temperature-wise or humidity-wise, look into the future. So that team is busy looking at some features using AI, but that's in the development phases.
Okay, another comment, question, feature request?
Yeah, so Kim yesterday, she mentioned it was on our wish list, and I guess that a lot of people here, I'm sure, are keen to know, is there with respect to the integration with Deswik, right? A lot of mines are using Deswik for their mine design, and there's already features out there, but is there constant communication, to keep it integrated and to make it more easy? Obviously, as your mine design evolves, the ideal for any ventilation engineer would be to automatically update your Ventsim and making sure everything's in line and you have a new stage in. I think that's a key feature that a lot of people here would like to see, and make sure that there's a commitment on both parties to make that more seamlessly.
Yeah, a good comment. To be frank, I don't think there has been any changes on the Ventsim or Deswik export to Ventsim in the last, 5-6 years. So no, there hasn't been a lot of development. We are in contact with them, but in terms of development, no, there hasn't been too much going on that side. I'm sure some people here would like me to mention, but we We're also integrated with other parties, and there is going to be one who's going to be presenting not too long, RPM Global. I think in terms of what we can do about it, though, there was thought at some point, at least for me, where I don't think I've told Martin. So I was thinking we could have fans, friction factors, etc., being placed into a model, another model based on 3D location. So you could take the new design and the old design and say, well, place all my fans, friction factors, etc., into the new design to the nearest 3D location. So that's one way where we could do it, on our side, putting what you've put into the old model into the new one. It wouldn't be full, obviously, because there's going to be different locations and etc., but it might get you at least part of the way there.
No, you're right, Florian. There hasn't been a lot of changes from Deswik to Ventsim, but I think Martin made some changes to Ventsim recently to make the Deswik exports easier to stage. One of my frustrations with using Deswik is you get a whole dump of Deswik data, and then you've got to spend the next 3 days in Ventsim trying to sort it out. But one of the features I think Martin put in was if you can map the Deswik dates to the rock age of the export. So in other words, when Deswik exports, it exports a schedule as a rock age for each airway. You can then go into Ventsim, set up your stages with dates of start and end, and it will automatically break that Deswik schedule up into stages in Ventsim and have them all listed as the time periods that you want. So that was a great feature for me. I saved me a lot of time. I think my Deswik processing time went down from 3 days to about 3 minutes after that feature went in. So that was a good advancement.
Yeah, I think that's more for building a fresh model, and I think that works quite well. With something that you've already got, what should work is that you export your Ventsim, a new Ventsim model from Deswik, and you should be able to merge it with your existing one. And if you've tried that, it's likely that you may have run into problems doing that because it is a complicated process. But we fixed up a lot of stuff on that, and it's reliable, and that's what you should be able to do that, and it should work. But if there's a problem there, yeah, definitely contact us. But that for now, that's the method. Yep. Thanks.
He presented the question better than I could, but I was trying to find out who was the person in the audience who did the presentation, a woman, and I asked the question, what would you like to see? Yeah, so I guess I was going to get you to ask the question. What can't you do at the moment?
So what I like about Ventsim is that there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. So and that's the one thing that's been really good. So you can kind of fudge things to make them work how you want them. So that's been really good. And I think from my point of view, just even like how Craig said that you can import into Ventsim and put in the rock age, that helps a lot. And even if you're getting, like Hugo mentioned, you're just updating the model, you can just eliminate those dates, right? Like that you're trying to like add on to, but you'll just do it on a separate one and then just copy and paste into a new one. So there's a lot of things that can work. So I really don't know what else we can. What I really wish is that we have a disclaimer or something that says which version this was created in, because we have a lot of problems with IT updating softwares. So, and that should be an easy one to do.
You can currently you can actually go into File Memo.
Okay.
It will tell you which version the file was created with. It won't show you a warning, but it will tell you which version it was created with.
Okay, thank you.
It's under File Memo, I think, and you'll see it at the top there. But I think to try to answer your question, one of the big things that comes back often, I have to say, is Hugo's question on Deswik. That is something that comes back quite often by many people. How do they get the design updated? more easily without having to redo everything you've done for the last, week or so. So yeah, a good point, Hugo. We'll look into it. All right, who's next? Or have we run out of question? No.
So this is just a question about the spreadsheet tool. So currently you're able to select your airways and then you can change the columns that appear in the spreadsheet tool. But when you close that file and then you reopen your backup, it loses all of that saved configuration, let's call it that. Is there a way presently to keep that information stored so that if I decide to open up this backup in a week's time or a month's time, I'll be able to retrieve, that exact appearance. So if I selected, 10 specific airways with this data set, I want to be able to see that, in the future. Presently, I don't think it works, but correct me if I'm mistaken.
Yep, you can save a spreadsheet view, but I think what you're talking about there is like the grouping and the filtering and things like that. And I believe some of those aspects don't get saved with the spreadsheet view. So you'd have to redo them.
Any plans to have that?
It just moved up the priority list, based on your feedback.
If I may as well, I think another part of the data analysis that we're trying to push at the moment is using the stage graph. And I think what Martin and the team have done in terms of the message boxes and launching the stage graph from there is very important. So I actually have some feedback on Martin on that one. Just a different way to set up to show the data once it goes to Excel. But it is probably one of the ways we are looking at more and more in the future to try to extract data for every stage at once without having to, redo different things. So I think the stage graph is where a lot of the development is going to be in terms of extracting data down the track, especially because it has the ability to look at multiple stages, multiple data, but also do some basic operation like sum, etc. Okay, another question, comment, feature request? Yep.
So working with Mind Design team, there has been circumstances that we wanted to transfer the XF files from our Ventsim model to DesVic for them to elaborate on the design and make it proper. But in my experience, we always had challenge to export the XF from our Ventsim and import it to DesVic. Has there been any work done on that? Is there any feature that I may be missing on my side? So we usually typically it's Mind Design gives us the XF files and we go with it, but frequently we need to do the reverse. We give them some strings to work with.
Or is it a case where you're suggesting to add more shots, a new shot, for example, at a specific location or something like that?
Yeah.
Should be able to use a DXF export in Ventsim. I'm not aware of any issues in using it and putting it back into DesVic, but happy to have a look at it more in detail. Have you tried exporting a Ventsim model into DXF?
Yeah, we tried, but it was quite limited to the point that they preferred to get a screen capture and then recreate it themselves.
Yeah, I'll be keen to have a look at the model itself.
Sure, sounds good.
For sure. Thanks, Stefan.
I think I've had similar experience in that because my background has been mining and ventilation, and if you do filtering in the Ventsim model and you export, you don't get the radius of curvatures for them to work with it. So, no, but if it's a vent trace or a single line, it works perfect. Yeah, but if it's an elaborate design, you don't get it.
Okay, that's good to know. Right, who's next? Or do we have anyone next? Yes. Dr. Sasmith at the back.
Before that, maybe if I can add just one thing. I think I've used a couple of mining softwares, and Ventsim is one of the best user-friendly softwares. And if it has, you do things easily in Ventsim than all the other softwares that I've used. So things like maybe cutting sections, a little bit of these things in the Ventsim, it will be easier not to go back and do it in SEPAC or do it in other softwares. So the basic CAD tools that you'd want to do in SEPAC or any other software, if you have it in Ventsim, I think it would be quite handy.
We actually had that feedback before. People wanting to do more of their design in Ventsim. So, yeah, thanks for letting us know.
Agus Smito from McGill University. First of all, I would like to thank Houghton because every year I invited Houghton to McGill to give a tutorial for Ventsim, and it has been very useful. And I seconded Craig's opinion that ventilation education is very important. So at McGill, we use Ventsim at least for 2 courses, ventilation and mine design. One of my suggestions is that, you know, when I teach in the class, usually I show all the equations, and then the students basically use Ventsim to solve some of the problem. And they always look at the user guides. And one of the missing thing in the user guide is the equations. Because many students, they learn the equation in the class, but then when they click a Ventsim, they don't know what equation that they really solve. The PRQ square is pretty simple, but when it comes to heat and gases, then it becomes a bit blur. Yeah, that's one of my, I guess, suggestion. Thank you.
That's a good point. I mean, typically we just tell people to look at Macpherson's book, where pretty much all the equations are contained, but it is a fair point. We should probably have a registry of all the equations used, easily handy, for sure. Okay, next one. Assuming there is a next one. No, anyone else? Any last taker? All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining in and participating. It was great feedback so far. And if you think about something else later on, just let us know anyway. We have our support email that I was planning to put on the screen, but I didn't get the chance. But typically, if you want to contact us or contact the support team, you contact ventsim.support@howden.com. It's an email address that is monitored every day, pretty much, not on weekends. Also monitored in Canada. Very important to note that the team here is also monitoring it. So if you have support issues in this part of the world, you're not necessarily going to wait for the next day for an answer. You might get an answer on the same day, which is nice to know. So yeah, if any feedback, any issues, ventsim.support@howden.com, or you can head to our forum, find someone who has the same issue, or post your questions, or someone else can find it later. Okay. Well, thanks everyone.